You guys ready?
Do the NFL thing or no?
Hmm?
Do the NFL thing.
Hey, Greg,
Yes, sir.
on the exec, you want a motion to approve and release or just approve?
I think we should probably hold on that, given the fact that we have a matter in executive session that's taking place after that, Paul.
Okay,
So I would just simply
I get
table
a
that
chance
until
to
the
see
next
you.
meeting.
okay.
Come on, Debbie, let's go.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, September 25th, 2017, 6:30 PM. It's time for our Board of Selectmen meeting. First order of business, as always, is Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice to see nobody was kneeling.
No kneeling.
Unlike the NFL.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, before we get started,
Mr. Sullivan.
I don't think it goes without surprise, without saying the Dudley Charlton Regional School District suffered an enormous loss recently. Mr. John Pear, many of us knew him as vice principal. He was also educated through the Dudley Charlton school system. Just a tragic, tragic event for all the people involved, but especially the families. I know I speak for the board, and we send out our condolences. And I'd like to also acknowledge that we may have not acknowledged, that's their fifth death of a student or a faculty member in approximately 14 or 16 months. And it's an enormous task, and I don't know how Mr. Desto and his staff hold us together, but I know I speak for the board and the town when we send our sympathies.
Thank you, Sully.
I just want to comment that Mr. Desto, superintendent, had a horribly filled calendar beyond his normal running the regional. So God bless him and the families.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, just the outpouring that I saw on Saturday at the memorial event, just so many people put in such good work and just such a fitting tribute for such a great guy. So, Mr. Pear, we will miss you. Next up, item 2, acceptance of minutes. We have the minutes of September 11th, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we
Joseph.
approve the minutes of our regular meeting of September 11th, 2017.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, seconded by Mr. Ruda. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. And then there's the executive session minutes of September 11th, 2017. Paul?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we approve, but not release at this time because of pending issues, the executive session minutes of September 11th, 2017.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, seconded by Mr. Ruda. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Item 3 is appointments.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ruda.
I move that we appoint Don Wilson back onto the Capital Improvement Planning Committee with a term to expire 6/30/2020.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Ruda, seconded by Mr. Joseph. Discussion?
Mr. Chair, I see Mr. Wilson present, and if he has anything he wants to add, that'd be great, but if not, I thank him for his current service and his service going forward. He's a pretty important part of that committee, and he takes it extremely serious.
He absolutely does. Mr. Wilson, would you like to come up and say anything? No?
Quiet but conscientious.
Yes, as always, steady, sure-footed, and thank you, Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thanks, Don.
That motion state the term to expire?
Yeah, 6/30/2020.
The motion stated that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Next is Debbie Thibodeau to be reappointing our town accountant effective July 1st, 2017, with the term to expire 6/30/2020.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ruda, motions,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Joseph. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you,
Mr.
Debbie.
Chairman, I'll move that
Mr. Ruda.
we appoint the following as election workers with terms to expire August 15th, 2018. Carol Antos, Marion Armstrong, Linda Bazinet, and Elizabeth Pribble.
Motion by Mr. Ruda, seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Question, Mr. Joseph?
Greg, are these the only ones, or are these just new appointments?
These are the ones that are being recommended for reappointment?
Because I know there's a lot of election workers.
Right. But these are the only names that were forwarded to us.
We just did a bunch a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I think
These
he's inadvertently missed.
Okay, these are the 3 additional ones.
were 4, actually.
Thank you.
4. Yep, 4. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
These 4 are new.
Yes. And we also have resignations tonight. We have from the Capital Improvement Planning Committee and Planning Board, Sean Garin. Sean's not here tonight, but he'd like to resign from both of those committees effective September 14th, 2017.
Question before motion?
Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, he's also a constable, right?
No.
He's not, he resigned as constable?
His
He
appointment
hasn't
ran
been,
out.
he hasn't
Oh,
been.
his appointment is over? Okay, thank you.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman, to accept the resignation of Sean Guerin from both the Planning Board and the Capital Improvement Planning Committee effective September 14th, 2017.
Mr.
Could
Chair,
I,
Motion by Mr. Ruda. Is there a second?
I'll second that with a couple quick questions and a
Mr.
comment.
Sullivan?
The comment would be, on our behalf, you could send a letter with regret thanking him for his service.
yep, that was,
Yep.
that was my question.
Yeah, Planning Board is a joint appointment between us and the Planning Board, I believe. No?
Yes,
I thought it was.
He's elected.
yes.
Either way, it's in the packet. Either way, so we don't end up like they did with the ZBA, can we get that position advertised and try to get a volunteer to step forward to fill till the next election? Please turn off your cell phone when you enter the meeting.
I'll get it.
Oh, Jeff? Still not as bad as Paul's that
Sorry.
night.
That's not me this time.
No, I'm not doing it all.
I went off like 10 times.
So, we don't want to, the ZBA was running short members and things were, we gotta get that advertised right away. And it was capital improvement membership based on being a planning board member, it wasn't that large, right?
No, it was for Sean?
Yeah.
Separate. Yeah.
He wasn't, you sure he wasn't the planning board rep, because they need to appoint someone? to
Oh, I
take
don't
his seat.
know. Don says no.
He was that large? Okay, then we can advertise that one too.
Okay. I like the idea of a letter. Sean's done a lot around this town, so.
So what was that thing now?
Thank you, Sean. We miss you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Joseph.
could I
Appointment.
remind the board that I had suggested that we do an infomercial on our local cable, and I would like you to, I'd like the town administrator to set up a script. I'd like the town administrator
It's a joint.
to set up a script
Yeah, had a joint meeting. Sorry, Paul,
I'm sorry.
my fault.
which includes the positions and the kinds of skills we're looking for. And I would like the board to appoint one selectman to make that presentation on camera with the town administrator. Isn't often you can make the entire board this quiet.
Well, you like TV. Do you want to be on TV somewhere?
I'll nominate Paul Joseph.
Second by acclamation.
Don't you want to do it?
If we have a script, I don't mind helping with that. Just,
All right,
Is that,
either John or I will do it. Yes? Meaning John Massey,
if I had more time, I would, Paul.
okay?
all right. Thank you, Paul. Item 4, public comments. Does anybody here like to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda?
That's a switch. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Greg, Town Administrator's Report, Section 5.
Evening, everyone. Just wanted to report on a couple of things that have been going on in the community since the board last met. The chairman, yourself, and Selectman Sullivan, we attended a meeting of the Dudley Charlton Regional School District, along with the town of Charlton, to begin discussions of the fiscal year 2019 budget process. And one of the things that we learned is that Dudley will be facing a significant challenge with the minimum required education funding going up almost $400,000. So we are working with the schools in an effort to find a reasonable solution to that, but the amount of that increase is certainly substantial, and it's something that the town needs to deal with going forward for its budget that will be taking effect July 1 of 2018. Any questions on that?
No, Mr. Chair, I just want to state, as you know, you were there.
I was
but
there.
I want to state for the public, because I believe the school committee meeting was recorded. I'm not 100% sure when they played it. This is not a
I'll get it.
school versus town issue. This is a combination of the formula that we've been contesting with Rep. Durant for several years, and it's unfunded mandates from the state and other obligations that the town nor the school has any control over.
That's right.
So this is, you know, people a lot of times will say, oh, this entity's doing that, or this is not it at all. This is one that is 100% out of all local control.
This is the state coming at us and saying, this is what you're gonna pay from hell or high water,
Period.
period.
And it's a very, as Greg could probably allude to for an hour meeting, it's a convoluted formula, and
And it's a formula, Mr. Sullivan, that doesn't take into consideration any subsequent unfunded local mandates.
correct.
That came, over the
After
past
that.
10 or 15
Right.
years.
So,
So the school is up against it just as much as the municipal budget is up against it.
yes, I just wanted to be clear on that.
No,
You followed it more than I did. You're the one who kind of put us on the right track to contesting the formula, and hasn't gotten us anywhere yet, but we're trying.
Yeah, one thing specific to the formula we learned at the meeting is there are a lot of numbers that get put into the calculation of it, but it doesn't consider the amount of money that Dudley raises in property taxes. So Dudley is noted for the fact that we have a very favorable tax rate, and also our property values are very modest, so that translates to the amount of money that we raise to go to a town and school services is low in comparison to most communities. And one of the comparisons that was given at the meeting was the school district that I believe Spencer belongs to spends more per student than Dudley does, and that's a direct reflection of the fact that even a poor community like Spencer raises about $2 million more in taxes than Dudley does, and we all suffer as a result of that. But the main point is the state doesn't consider that in determining how they distribute aid under this formula. Next on my list is I had an opportunity to attend a hearing with council on Friday, and it was an appeal of the dog order that you took relative to the Cicciarelli dog a few weeks ago. The magistrate at the hearing did uphold the board's order, and I expect that that will be appealed at a de novo hearing, so no action on that until probably sometime in late October, but at this point, the board's decision has been upheld through the courts. A couple weeks ago, the town did hold a land auction, so there are 5 parcels that the town offered for sale, and the total amount of those sales would be $184,500. So that's good news. People talk about what is the town doing to raise money to pay for its services beyond taxes, and in this instance, $184,500 will be coming to the town side of government to fund services going forward. That's good news.
Let me just remind everybody, whenever this topic comes up, you'll hear me say this, that according to the policy by which we establish the sale of tax title land at public auction, that 60% goes into stabilization and 40% goes into the capital improvement fund.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair, can, on behalf of the board,
Mr. Sullivan?
obviously Rich may be watching, but have Mr. Belkunis on our behalf thank Rich and the Zikos group. I heard it was well-attended
It was.
and well-ran.
Awesome, yes, please do.
Can we get a summary of each of the properties? Just a summary, not
Sure.
description. The property and what it sold for,
Sure.
please.
We can do that.
Sure, Rich has that.
I learned that the town's bond rating has been affirmed by Moody's, so it's a A3, single A3, which is unchanged. So people say, what's the relevance of the town's bond rating? It helps us borrow money at a substantially lower cost than communities that have a worse or a poorer bond rating. I think it's pretty notable. I mentioned to you before the fact that Dudley has a very modest ability to raise revenue, and the fact that we have an A3 bond rating is pretty good. One of the things that gets noted in the bond rating report is the low amount of long-term debt that the town has issued. And you know, I have to think that at the end of the day, that's what really matters and translates into the bond rating. But they also feel as though the town's financial condition is sound at this time, and I'm pleased to report that. And then the last thing that I have is a reminder that the deadline for fall town meeting articles is Friday, October 6th at 12 noon. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, we have no around town.
Mr. Chair, on around town,
Mr. Sullivan?
I was mentioned at an earlier meeting, can we have the administrator on our behalf maybe reach out to, say, like a Gentex, one of our bigger employers, one of our bigger taxpayers, one of our bigger companies value in town? Maybe they can come in at some point, just someone could come in, give a quick synopsis, because I think everyone has an idea generally what they do, but it'd be nice to, we do recognize the small businesses that probably need it, but it'd be nice to recognize a large business that, to be
Okay.
frank, kind
Maybe
of,
lob a call in there and say,
see if they can send somebody
They would-
down.
I bet they'll do that.
Yep.
Good idea, Saul. All right, let's move on. Item 7 is, we have one public hearing tonight, and this is for a transfer of all alcohol liquor license. Webster Dudley Country Club does business as Dudley Hill Golf Club, located at 80 Airport Road, to Dudley Links Operations LLC with the business address of 123 Center Road, Dudley, Mass.
Mr. Chair, at this time, I recuse myself.
Mr. Sullivan recuses himself at 6:52.
Not that I have an issue with alcohol,
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, let me open the public hearing as well at 6:52. Thank you. Hi. Please introduce yourself and what are we doing tonight? Thank you.
Certainly. Jennifer Garner here on behalf of Dudley Links Operations LLC. Donna Truex is also with me from Bowditch and Dewey, and we have Michael Stanton, who's the manager of the LLC.
Could I ask you to speak up a little bit? I'm definitely going hard of hearing.
Certainly. In our application, we did include a narrative of the transaction, so I'll go over that briefly, and then open it up to questions that the board may have. Nichols College formed Dudley Fairways LLC to own the property at 80 Airport Road and 10 Dudley Oxford Road. They also formed Dudley Links Operations LLC, which will be responsible for the actual operation of the golf club. The transfer license is from Webster Dudley Country Club, Inc. to Dudley Links Operations LLC. And the operation of the day-to-day operation of the golf club will be done by Tri-State Golf LLC by way of an assignment of an operating agreement that was originally held by Raceway Golf Club and Restaurant LLC.
Okay. Mr. Ruda?
Well, the obvious first place to start is, Mr. Valiakonis, does the applicant meet all the criteria to transfer the alcohol liquor license?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Joseph?
I'll double check.
Okay.
So who's going to hold the license?
Dudley Links Operations LLC, and the current manager of the day-to-day operations is James C. Kiersky, and he will continue to operate the day-to-day golf club.
All right, so the license holder will be Dudley Fairways.
Dudley Links
Dudley
Operations.
Links. And the permittee will be James Sikorsky.
As manager, he's an employee of Tri-State
Right,
Golf.
You have a holder of the license, and you have a permittee.
That's right.
So he will be the permittee.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Valiakonis, any issues that you see?
Just a question, was there any change from the existing operations?
No, the day-to-day operations will remain the same.
You keep the restaurant open?
That's correct.
Same name or new name?
They're not planning on name changes at the moment.
The Twisted Tea or whatever it is now?
Okay.
Will the restaurant be open 12 months a year?
That's yet to be determined.
We're sorry, but we lost a little bit of power on one of the mics, so you may have to share it.
Thank you, Mike.
Of course, moving together closer is always a good thing.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. We're hoping the answer to that is yes. I'm certain that Tri-State would like to operate on a year-round basis, and especially as they get more involved with the college operations. we're hoping that it can be available, open 12 months a year.
So will the Dudley Links or Sodexo or a third party run the restaurant part?
Tri-State will still be managing the golf course operations on behalf of Nichols College.
Okay.
Sodexo will not
So you'll,
take over the dining
do
operations.
you lease that space to them? Is that what you'll do?
Currently, there's the operating agreement they have with the course is through next February. We're looking to set a long-term arrangement together
Okay.
with Tri-State.
And the reason I'm asking, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Paul.
the reason I have the interest in this is we belong to the Bay Path Regional School District, which, as you know, has a culinary program. And one of the things that I was hoping was that with a totally locally controlled operation, specifically under the aegis in some manner and form of Nichols, would you folks be willing to pursue doing internships or mentoring students from Bay Path in the culinary arts program?
We've had discussions with Tri-State about internships for our own students, and they've been open to those discussions, and that'll take place as we move forward with the long-term arrangement, so I certainly can see if they'll entertain that as well.
Good.
I mean, naturally, it's a limited operation that's going on there, so there's not
That would be
a
nice
lot
to
of
see, wouldn't
available
it?
positions, but I certainly
you.
will bring that up.
I think I would like to see it open 12 months a year and like consistently and, make it something bigger, right? We have very limited restaurants in Dudley, as you know, so
Right,
be good.
That's the hope.
Okay.
Any other questions from the audience? On this? No? Anything else from the board? What's the board?
Gonna close the
Yeah, I'm
hearing.
gonna close the hearing, don't I? At 6:59, Michelle, please.
And Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Joseph.
I'm going to move that we approve the transfer of the all-alcohol liquor license, Webster Dudley Country Club, DBA Dudley Hill Golf Club, at 80 Airport Road, to Dudley Links Operations, LLC, with a business address of 123 Center Road, Dudley, Mass.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, seconded by Mr. Ruda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, unanimous, one abstention.
Thank you.
And let the record show Mr. Sullivan returned at 6:59.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good luck. Thank you. We have no licensing and permits tonight under Section 8. Section 9, we have a bunch of public business tonight. Item number 1, 9A is Paula Lane and Circle Drive, a discussion on right-of-way. Our friends from that area are here. So come on up.
So while they're coming up, maybe I give a little bit of an
Yeah, Mr.
introduction.
Valiakonis, thank you.
I had an opportunity to meet with a couple of the residents on, from that neighborhood, and the discussion of concern was the residents would like to consider moving forward with a road improvement under the town's betterment bylaw. And one of the prerequisites in doing so is that the right-of-way needs to be clearly established. And you'll know from going back in 2013, there was considerable work to, through easements that had been obtained to validate the ownership and passage across the majority of that roadway. However, there remained one portion of that roadway where none of the legal experts could determine the ownership, and that particular parcel question of ownership remains a hindrance in terms of kind of moving forward. And the residents had a discussion with me. We thought that one of the things the town could consider was a taking of the parcel. With the fact that town meeting is coming up, I thought that it was a good idea, given the timeliness, for them to come in and see you this evening.
Good evening.
Hi, guys.
Hi. So, as Greg allotted...
Tell everybody your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. David Terrio, 16 Circle Drive.
Kristen Mallett, 5 Paula Lane.
Thank
So
you.
as
We know
Greg-
who you are, just for the...
Greg alluded to, we had a meeting with him, and we discussed a few things, and we discussed one of the issues would be to ask the board to have a vote to take this parcel of land that's clarified as owner unknown on the survey, and take it by eminent domain.
I have some questions. I want to get this ironed out,
Me
too.
too.
Yeah, we do. All right, Paul, why don't you go first?
Number one, I'm disappointed that all of the plot plans I see, none of them include where I know where Circle Drive, I mean where Paula Lane is, but none of them show Paula Lane on this. And one of my questions is, A, what is the parcel of land on the diagram that we're looking at that is ownership unknown? That's number one.
One with the lines through it, Paul.
Which one?
The one with the lines through it, about halfway up.
All right. Secondly, will that provide sufficient access to Circle Drive? And is the intent to access Paula Lane only through Circle Drive?
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Paul.
Nor should we.
Is the taking,
It's a good question.
is the taking of that land sufficient to provide access for the town to continue the minimal services that we have agreed to do since 2013? Is that sufficient? If not, then is this an exercise in futility? That's number one. Number two, is the intent, since there's no inclusion of Paula Lane on this anywhere, is the intent to gain access to Paula Lane through and only through, or via, or only via Circle Drive? I don't mean to
For
ask
what
questions
purpose?
like
You mean
that.
for plowing and sanding?
Yeah, because we can't go here, so it's gotta be with the understanding that's where the access is gonna be. And if that's the case, I know Sully wants to go because he's better on this.
Nah, not really.
If that's the case, Danny, does that present issues for you? You're third in line.
All right, so,
Mr. Chair, with the previous administrator, myself, I know Mr. Guyon, went out there after we had Para survey it. And to the best of his knowledge, his company's knowledge, it was owner unknown. And if you read the little part to the left that's circled, right below it was done without the benefit of a title report. I want to be careful to answer Paul's question, because I'm not a legal expert. Yes, I think it's going to cause a problem. Danny can speak for himself, because I believe last time we talked about this, when you come down Paula Lane to plow, you do something with the snow, or if you go up.
You can't go up unless you get access through Fairview.
I can't speak for anybody. All I can speak for is my memory, and as you like to say, Paul, sometimes it's dimmed. I believe if we try to do an eminent domain, there was other people that came forward and said that they own that part. I mean, we never got documentation stating that they did. I believe also, historically, we've been using all different means of egress and access to get into that neighborhood to do the plowing that we... I think if we go for eminent domain, I think, can't speak for anybody, but based on the history, based on other meetings that we've had with other butters, it's gonna be contested. So,
by who?
I believe it's gonna be I believe there's a good chance it'll be contested. In a eminent domain taking that becomes contested, I'm sure the administrator has a lot more experience than I do. And I know everyone pays taxes there, it's gonna be the town's burden to defend themselves on this application.
Okay.
Yeah, I got some questions, and I'm glad you bring up that point, the way you brought it up, Stephen. Is there sewer and water installed in the section that is allegedly owner unknown?
Yeah, I would say yes. I would say yes, because no one there has a septic.
Is that a
system.
guess, or do you know?
The lots aren't big enough to have a septic.
Yeah, they were
septic
pretty tight up there, right?
I don't know.
And everyone has a well. There's none of those lots would have the required distance between a well and a septic
So
system.
everybody has wells up there?
Yes.
Nobody has town sewer or water?
We have town sewer.
You
We-
do have town sewer.
No one has town water. Everyone has a well.
My question then is,
On their side, I believe there is town water. There is a hydrant on Fairview,
right down the bottom,
almost at the end of Sixth Ave.
right.
Right in the corner.
So my question then is, we've got sewer lines running in there through that land that we think is, or we believe is unclaimed? Okay, so you folks pay sewer bills,
Yes,
but not water bills, is that correct?
correct.
All right. So, you know, Sully, that may be what you suggest could happen about it being contested. That may be the only way we're going to establish firmly this issue of ownership and access via that road. And if someone can document it to town council's legal satisfaction, who has enough experience in land court, then we'll know. And it'll no longer be unknown. So,
I bit my tongue on that one.
I mean, I see that as progress, one way or the other.
There's an easement in place already from like the 50s for a sewer line.
Yeah, no, we're past that. I
Okay,
want to know who owns that stretch of road.
There is a sewer line, I speak with some certainty, on Fairview Ave Extension, because I believe we need sewer department, I'm not speaking for water sewer. I believe there's a, my words, main trunk that goes off of Progress, I think, Danny, right through the woods. Yeah, we need to talk to those folks first, but I think there's definitely town sewer up there. But then once you get past where Fairview Ave used to end, with the last house on the left, which, before the condos,
Yep.
that's where the road used to end.
Right.
I believe from there forward, maybe Wells,
How significant
I
is
think the
that,
sewer line goes
Stephen?
left. I think the sewer line goes left and comes back down Fairview, does not go up Fairview.
All right, and if I may, John.
Go ahead, Paul. I'm trying to think. 'cause
How
it's my road.
significant is that, Stephen? And do we need to have the water commissioner, sewer commissioner come in and tell us what impact is that likely to have, in your opinion, on a decision that we would make?
I think the easy answer to get off the hook would be yes. Have somebody come in, even if they brought their engineer to explain. And again, Greg has probably a lot more experience than we all do. That the sewer easement might be very specific to what the sewer line, you know what I'm saying, for.
Yep.
So, I remember when they went out and did this diagram is very similar to what was painted on the road. Because the superintendent was there, and I know he said he's third. There was some talk about a pickup truck, having a private guy do it, whenever possible. And to the best of my knowledge, it's been a working relationship with all owners and abutters.
You don't need the mic, just yell.
Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, well, we have a private contractor plowing over there. He was told at the end of Paul Lane where it comes out onto Fairview to stay off of that to the best of his ability to plow that intersection. I've never had any complaints from the road owner on Fairview.
Okay.
And as far as cutting that corner to go up into Circle Drive and Paul Lane, we've never had any complaints at this time from the owner of the road.
All right, John,
Greg,
you be quiet, you got questions?
No, Jonathan, next.
First of all, this is good work. At least we're getting closer to a solution instead of languishing and flailing like we have been for the past 4 or 5 years. If we were to take this piece of land, how closer does that get us to satisfy 2 requirements? One is unquestionable access to plow, and 2, road betterment.
So, yeah, the taking clears up any questions about ownership. It doesn't clear up, as was pointed out, it doesn't clear up the issue of compensation. but that's separate from the issue of ownership. So whoever contests it, the way the process would work, before I answer your questions, is town meeting votes to appropriate it, authorize the taking. That then gives the Board of Selectmen to issue an order of taking. So it's two pieces, town meeting, Board of Selectmen. We would have the property appraised, so we have to have an appraisal. And then we appropriate the money equal to the amount of the appraisal. Whoever wants to make a claim for that needs to prove ownership to the property. And honestly, I don't see the town trying to prove ownership. I see someone on the outside trying to prove ownership. Let them spend their time and effort trying to prove that they own the property. It really forces the issue of ownership kind of in the hands of other parties other than the town.
I like that.
Which is good, because everyone claims, as you said, everyone claims they own it. Okay, fine, prove it
It
in the
should
legal.
come as no surprise to anybody publicly,
Right.
beginning with the, you know.
I mean, this is not something that you're gonna
Right.
be spending your retirement on. This is a small little piece of property that maybe is worth a small insignificant amount of money, but like you said, that's what the appraisal is, and the person can contest that.
So as a factor, and I kind of agree with your train of thought, as a factor of getting this issue resolved, in order to get it onto
Yeah,
the
it's the
town
first
meeting
step.
warrant, we would have to vote on it, and in order to vote on it, we would continue our tradition of having a public hearing,
We'd have a public
at
hearing.
which time we could vet it a little further, I would think.
And remember, if you get the vote of town meeting, it still requires a vote of the Board of Selectmen. So there's another bite of the apple down the road, is you would want to make sure, for example, the appraisal came in and it was an outrageous amount of money, and you said, well, we don't want to pay that amount of money for, the board doesn't have to authorize that order of taking at that point. But it is kind of key in terms of bringing the betterment issue forward, because without the issue of ownership clarified, there's no real incentive to begin the betterment process.
Mr. Chair, I know these folks are specifically asking about this little piece. I know for a fact, on the left side going up, there used to be drains in front of some of the houses. I know for a fact one of them filled it in. I mean, if we take ownership of this little piece, we're not taking, or is the intent at some point to come back and take ownership of Paula Lane, Circle Drive, the whole upside down U?
I think that's
Because-
their end game.
Well, we also, again, things have been good. We also had the issue with the drain running behind these properties on the left as you're going up. There's like 3 or 4 houses. And the highway superintendent and I went out, and one of the gentlemen that lives up there allowed us to go on his property, and in the back of the property, there was how big was that pipe, Danny?
24-inch.
24-inch wide open drain that comes from Paula Lane that, I'm just saying, it's not part of the road, but if we're going down this road of endgame, does that bring us acceptable? But it was private.
And
They-
all the forms were into the planning board and the board of selectmen in 2010.
Right, so none of that at this point
Well, the drain-
matters. The only thing that matters is similar to like Dave's
Yeah, but-
Way. If we get to the point where we're accepting a road, under a betterment program or anything else, we'd have to go back and re-inspect and make sure everything was
Right.
up to the standard for the vote at town meeting.
I'm
You're
just gonna-
talking betterment, we're not
No,
there
I'm
yet.
talking drainage and stuff.
But that's
I'm
part
gonna
of it,
respectfully
right?
disagree, because we asked the planning board at the time to provide us with the as-built for the subdivision, which showed where all the drains went, because there was some issue about on your side, down below you guys, about cisterns that were underground.
You know what?
Pipes were disconnected. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if the end game is to get to where everybody wants to get, there's,
The definitive source would be for us to ask Greg, define betterments, please.
Yeah, so the town adopted a road betterment bylaw, and that's been something that's been on the books for about a year, a little bit less than a year. And it allows, upon petition of the owners, the 50% of the property owners who abut on a private roadway, to petition to have improvements made to that road. Those improvements can be from minor improvements, such as repaving, all the way to the point where it would ready the road to be accepted by the town. And then it would require it to go to town meeting, be approved at town meeting, and then those project costs would then be apportioned to the residents.
Okay.
Every landowner would receive a bill that would include a portion of that betterment. And as the properties would be sold, those betterments would be paid off in their entirety. If
Okay.
they're not sold, then it's extended over a period of time. Residents are happy because it clears up questions of roadway, which I'm sure there's some question about, when you go to sell a piece of property, is the road on a private road or a public road? And I would imagine this would resolve a lot of those issues too. So
Okay.
that's their benefit.
If I could ask my second question. The problem is, and we have to resolve this, the problem is that we are currently driving over what may be privately owned property to get to Circle Drive and ultimately Paula Lane. So we need to resolve that. Now, it would seem to me, and Greg, I'm asking you this specifically, it would seem to me that if, on the advice of legal counsel, if we advertise that we have the intent to take a particular piece of land by eminent domain for public safety purposes, that state law should dictate that any claimant to that property in opposition would have a specified number of days to respond. So whether or not that will fit into the time frame for a May town meeting, I don't know, but I'd like to know the answer to that at some point soon.
So,
You see what I'm saying?
Mr. Chairman,
The way Greg explained it to us, that if the town votes to take it by eminent domain, that's a done deal. Then if anyone wants to make a claim on it, they have a certain amount of time.
Yeah, but you know what? That seems to me like
3 years.
you've let the horse out of the barn at that point, going through all of those steps, and then find out that somebody says, oh, wait a minute, my Aunt Sophie left that to me. Whereas if there's a posting, there should be a time limit on state law with that notice published that people can respond and claim that land.
So, I've been through a lot of eminent domain cases in some of my prior jobs. The law says that there's a right of appeal for 3 years, but the right of appeal only relates to the compensation that's awarded. They cannot trump the order of taking. The order of taking reigns supreme over any and all rights.
So,
So no one can come back and say, my Aunt Sophie gave this to me and I didn't know, and therefore the order is invalid. Doesn't work that way.
okay.
But also town meeting would have to appropriate a specific amount of money not
Yes.
to exceed.
That's how it would be written.
So, I guess before we go further down this road, we want to know about sewer easement, right? I know exactly where the line is, what they have for easement, that should be easy.
I would almost suggest that we can meet this out at a public hearing. Well, I don't want to delay a second. If we're running the risk of running up against the May warrant, then
Oh, I don't have a problem
we
with
can
that.
kill it at town meeting if we have to.
Or we can get information probably in
Sure.
a couple days before meeting.
There's a time for appeal, you said. So my question is, why would we need to appropriate money?
At a minimum, council's got to draw paperwork and go to court.
Well, I mean, we've got legal funds, but what I'm saying is that if we provide the notice that we're gonna claim it by eminent domain, and by that point, by the town meeting, no one has come up at that point, knowing though,
Bless you.
they still have some time, I would prefer not to unless we have to, not set money aside, and then if there's a claimant, we can see if we need to raise money, or if we can convince them to donate it, whatever the case might be. But I can't see voting to appropriate money when we don't know if we have to at that point. We can always do it later.
The only thing, and that works if it's not challenged.
Right.
But if it's challenged, you want to have an airtight process, and the airtight process
Given, yep.
says, now does the appropriate amount of money, conduct an independent appraisal of the property, and then based upon the appraisal, go forward with a recommendation for town meeting based upon that amount. So that kind of gives you the coverage if someone comes back and claims it, you've at least fulfilled what's required under the law.
Mr. Chair, can we ask the administrator to contact council and see if he can, I'll say briefly, but, I mean, I'm not sure how brief, but,
Succinctly.
yes, put something together that would tell us step by step by step. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying I have any expertise in this area at all, except a few years I was on planning board. We need that before the public hearing. I like to have that information before, share it with the residents, and then find out exactly what, is it eminent domain public hearing similar to any other public hearing where you draw a circle around what you're doing and everybody within that 500 or 1,000 feet has to be notified by certified letter? You know, different, I don't know if it's a different requirement for eminent domain.
It's, you need to do it at a posted meeting, and I'm not sure about the notification
Right, so
requirements,
you
but
gotta find it out.
but I know about the two-step process, because a lot of times people say, well, there's a vote at town meeting authorizing the land to be taken by eminent domain, but the second step is it requires the board to actually execute an order of taking, and that has to be done publicly with notification.
So, Mr. Chairman, without, I don't think we need a motion, but can we unanimously agree that we would ask Greg to plan on preparing for a public hearing
Yeah.
in advance of us voting whether or not to put this on the warrant? The town meeting warrant, the May warrant?
Are you including in that Steve's recommendation?
Yeah, I would include that as prepared too.
Yeah, if we get that information
Yeah.
before, it'd be better. I'd rather get it before than we go in that
Sewer line
night.
stuff? The sewer stuff?
That and
Right.
what the process would, you know, and Gary can even, again, succinctly lay it out. Uncontested, go right to the finish line.
I like that.
Contested, this what would happen if it's contested.
Okay.
Greg, are we gonna see him tonight?
Yep, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, two for the price of one, you guys can
Okay.
ask him.
No.
So at this
He
time,
told me I can't go.
what are we gonna tell him? These poor people sitting here, film at 11?
No, just, they've been great about staying in touch, I think.
Danny, do you have anything else to add?
Let's get it straightened out if we can.
Yeah.
And there's other issues, but we'll take one step at a time.
Short of actually getting a plow down on your road, this is probably the second best accomplishment we've had in that, with this whole situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, you understand where we're at, why we're there? And why you have to leave?
Well, you can stay, just,
You can stay if you want. Sit in the audience, join us.
I just want to ask the question, since we normally have to come in probably within the next month, will we have plowing, expect to have plowing for this winter? I know Danny always has that question, so I figure we'd clarify it right now.
Yeah,
we can affirm our vote. I mean, our motion in 13 was the revote of every year.
it is, but
Yep.
do we need to have, that needs to be posted as an agenda item before we do
Does.
that?
Yep.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not gonna snow between now and,
Did once.
Can we put that on a future agenda, Michelle, soon, and then we'll, next one?
Yeah.
Let's just do that, because,
Okay.
so Danny sees this as progress, hopefully, so we can, right?
You make sure there's no major changes down there, Danny, that's gonna impact the equipment. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, guys, good to see you. Thanks.
thanks, guys.
All right. Item 9B. Our friend Heather Bose is here, Dudley PTO, and she's asking for permission to hold the Dudley PTO Turkey Trot 5K on Thanksgiving morning, November 23rd, 2017, at 8 a.m., beginning at the town beach. Hi, Heather.
Hi, John.
Oh, hi, Heather.
Is
So-
there anything different about this from the last one?
Just a new year.
Yeah, this is the, how many, the third one?
Fourth.
Fourth one, right.
Time flies.
Yeah. So anything new and exciting, you know, to do, or are we just replicating what we did?
Just re-replicating. Don't want to break the wheel.
Yeah, I think it did work. Chief?
Does the police chief have any questions?
Well, I'd say you have to move it quick because I think the football game is home this year.
Oh, traffic, yeah, that's a good point.
It went great 2 years ago when we had it at home, and
Okay.
everybody went straight to the game, I think.
Do you need to change your route at all?
No.
Time? Get this pretty down pat, don't you?
Do.
Okay.
Easy peasy.
See, she got her road paved, you
That's
know,
why
so
they
she's
send her.
all,
I'm happy now.
she's all happy now,
Yeah.
so this is,
And then now they go really slow by our house.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we grant the Dudley PTO permission to hold the fourth annual PTO 5K Turkey Trot. Thanksgiving morning, which is November 23rd at 8 a.m., beginning and ending at the town beach.
Yes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, seconded by Mr. Ruda. Discussion?
One quick question, Mr. Chair, maybe I
Steve?
missed it. In her email,
Yeah, I was just gonna bring this up too. Go
Ms.
ahead.
Bose would like to know if Fire and EMS could put it on their flashing sign, the Harlem Wizards.
That was yesterday.
Have you talked to them already?
The Wizards was yesterday.
Oh, this is October, oh, I thought I said October.
Sorry.
Oh,
It's all good.
Okay,
okay.
perfect.
We just about sold out that one great too, so it's all good.
Okay, perfect. I thought it said October.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Heather.
I hope to see you all there running.
All right. Paul will be there.
I'll be walking. Maybe even crawling.
All right. Item 9C, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, recommendations for Fall Town Meeting warrant.
Good evening.
Don and Greg? Oh, Greg, you gonna do that?
Don, do you wanna handle it?
Okay. Go ahead,
So I'm
Greg.
just here to report on the results of the committee. Don, if you want to come up. So the committee met this evening at 5:30, and one of the things that they are required to do under the town bylaws is to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen on their proposals not less than 30 days, not more than 30 days prior to town meeting. So the committee considered a number of requests, and they voted to submit to you for consideration at the fall town meeting the following, and I'll just go through them one by one. A lot of the departments are here that if you have questions, we can go back and revisit it. Number one, purchase of a police cruiser up an amount up to $38,000, which would be offset by any amounts to be received through insurance recovery and/or monies coming from the cruiser fund. Number two, new ambulance in an amount up to $220,000, which would be borrowed. Three,
Will you
$30,000.
repeat number two?
New ambulance, $220,000, less any monies coming from insurance recovery, and these monies would be borrowed. Three, MIS, $30,000 for replacement of computer and technology in the municipal center. Four, a one-ton dump truck for the Building and Grounds Department in the amount of $48,000. The funds would be borrowed. Five, a Highway Department dump, heavy-duty dump with plow for the amount of $65,500. Monies would be borrowed. And then finally, a supplemental amount for completion of the Dudley Municipal Center electronic sign in the amount of $14,300. So that's the committee's recommendations. They realize at this point, everything is subject to availability of funds. And we do not, at this point, have free cash certified. So those are their recommendations, and unless you have objections or you wish to speak to the department heads, those will go on the warrant as a recommendation from the CIPC. And then they also made one further recommendation, which was to have a warrant article on the town meeting, which would clarify the Capital Improvement Planning Committee's authority over all departments being subject to the same review process when it comes to submission of capital requests. And I've been reminded that when the committee was created back in 2011, there was one department that became exempted from the capital improvement process. And it's in everyone's best interest that we all operate under the same rules.
All right,
Good
so you
summary.
got 6 items,
Yes, sir.
and 3 of them are borrowed.
Yes, they are.
So the amount you're asking for the cruiser up to, the MIS and the electronic sign total about 82, up to 82.3.
Right.
What's the likelihood of how much of that would we actually end up spending?
In a normal year, I'd say really good. This year, for the reasons that I outlined you with the concerns over the schools, I think it would be wise to leave town meeting with a substantial amount of unspent free cash, because we don't know what's gonna happen 8 months from now.
Do we have a projection of what borrowing 268, give me a second, $373,500 would be,
We will, we're gonna have that information for your next meeting. One of the concerns, or not a concerns, but one of the things that's up in the air is we're unsure about the necessity for the new ambulance, because that's dependent upon it being declared as a total loss for the public. The vehicle was in an accident, as a result of that, depending upon whether it's declared a total loss or not, if it can be repaired, then this would be withdrawn. But we don't want to miss the opportunity to get this before town meeting due to some quirk in the bylaw that says you have to make a recommendation, and I'll defer to Dean to explain any
I'd
more
like
about
to
that.
get an update on that.
all right, so it would be, including the three items, borrowing for $373,500 minus whatever we might get through insurance. Well, before Dean even says anything, I'm going to tell you that the people, rely on, under Dean's leadership, paramedic response with 2 ambulances. And it is also a significant source not only of effective treatment and service, but income at that paramedic rate. So I have absolutely no qualms about either borrowing or fixing. My preference is to probably borrow and get a new one, because over the course of time, that'll pay for itself. But anyways,
Go ahead, Dean.
You wanted an
Well, I
explanation?
want just an update with, on the
Well,
insurance claim.
the
What do you know?
adjuster came last week. It doesn't sound like we're gonna get replacement value. Yeah, I saved your money by remounting, but that's the catch-22, whatever you wanna call it. You're gonna get replacement value on a new chassis and a box that's, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. So, a new ambulance, I just priced it out. The new ambulance with the new stretcher loading system is $226,000 minus whatever we get, but you're gonna have to pay off the loan for the remount, so, that's where we're at right now.
Chief, and that stretcher system you're talking about, that's a upgraded requirement from the state, right?
Yes, I had explained that to capital improvement at the prior meeting, but, we actually have the power stretcher, which I called the adjuster and asked him to come back out because I don't think he looked at that. That was deemed a total loss, so that should be an additional I apologize, an additional roughly $19,000
Saved,
Wow.
or cost.
that we should get back.
Right, yeah, saved back to us.
But we didn't have the track system yet because it wasn't required because we remounted prior to July 1st. But now we need the track system, so that adds to the price. So that's where we're looking now. While I'm up here and we're on the topic of the ambulance, I'd just like to say one thing about Webster EMS. I'm extremely thankful to them. They really helped us out in that time of need during that accident. They're letting us borrow one of their reserve trucks. I mean, that's a short-term solution, but Gary's worked really good with us and the rest of the crew over there. And I'm extremely pleased that we have such a good working relationship with them now. And I'm happy that they've been very helpful to us.
so do we need to vote on this tonight? Or, since the waters are a little muddy, but I know that between Dean and the town administrator, that those waters will be clarified soon, do we just simply want to take this under advisement and then vote at our next meeting? Do we have the time to do that?
Yeah, we still have time, I
Well, it's
believe.
gonna be I guess it's
Gotta
gonna
get
be
the
an
figures.
article warrant, it's gonna be put on the
Yeah.
warrant.
Right, we can put a
So-
placeholder on the warrant if we had to, but
Right, but here's what
we
we've
don't have
got.
the figures though.
We've got recommendations from capital planning, okay, in front of us. So we've got 4 options. We can reject it outright. We can accept it as recommended. We can accept part of it, or we can take it under advisement, acknowledge receipt and take it under advisement.
That's probably the best course,
I agree.
last one.
I agree.
You want to do the last one?
I think that's best.
So if that's okay,
You, Jay?
then, Mr. Chairman, what I'll do is, I will make a motion to acknowledge receipt from the Capital Planning Committee, the 6 recommendations received, and to take that under advisement at this time.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous.
Mr. Chair,
15.
can I asked the police chief, the cruiser that they're referring to, is that a new addition to the fleet, or is that to replace the one that was in the accident?
Place one of the accident.
Are you in the same boat as fire and EMS with the replacement value numbers, or?
Oh, insurance claims.
Yeah.
Yes, one of the issues at this point is we're not sure what we're getting from insurance, and we were looking at some of the equipment from that vehicle that was totaled will be able to be transferred to the other vehicle, so that will reduce some of the cost of it. But we're not sure what the dollar amount is we'll get back from insurance.
Is this the one that
One that was
smacked in the vehicle in front of 21 West?
Yes, yes. So we're still waiting, we're working on that with the treasurer to get the insurance dollar. We figure a replacement for that vehicle is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of about $38,000. So then we take out the difference of the insurance money and then whatever else we can figure out with either free cash or cruiser funds and things like that to make up the difference.
Basically, same boat, waiting on numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, just waiting on at least the dollar amount, what they're going to figure.
I bet you we paid our policy on time.
No comment.
I'll say it for you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 9D, 13 Blackmere Road, ongoing saga. We're looking for recommendations for drainage improvements. Come on up, guys. Hey, Jamie. Going? Mr. Valiakonis, you set the table for us on this one?
Yes, sir. So at the board's last meeting, the board members had indicated as a result of the gentleman who lives at 13 Blackmere Road, Mr. Reardon, that would go out and take a look at the property along with Mr. Guyon, and I know that some of the board members did go out. And the purpose of today was to continue our discussion relative to any thoughts about recommendations for drainage improvements to this area.
Okay, thank you. And so we have one mic tonight, guys, so you identify yourselves,
Let's
please.
share it, yeah.
I'm Charlie Chickering. I own the property that the culvert goes across.
Would you say again, please?
Charlie Chickering.
Yes. Okay.
Jamie Reardon.
All right.
You know him quite well.
Oh, the Chickering name's well-known, too.
A lot of chickens.
The Chickering name's well-known, too.
Well, it's not often I sit at a meeting like this.
Oh, glad you're here. Glad you're here. Okay.
So did you take a look at it?
Yes.
What are
Danny,
your
why don't you come
thoughts?
up too?
If,
Want there, or
You know what?
one of these,
Do
one of
these
these.
mics work here? Fred? These mics work?
This one?
All right. Danny, could I ask you?
Yeah,
to
no,
come
I was
up
gonna
here?
suggest the same.
Grab that out of
you can't kick it out, he's gonna sit there then.
It's stationary.
You can't take that, Mike. He has to
No,
sit
he's
there.
gonna sit there.
Oh, okay.
You can sit there. Just-
Um,
That way they're not passing it back.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a chance to go out today, actually. So, first off, I never met Mr. Chickering, I met Mr. Reardon. I have a couple questions, are we gonna handle it that way?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wasn't at the last meeting, but I was at the first meeting when Mr. Reardon came before the board, and there was some discussion about work that the town had done. So I'd like to ask Mr. Chickering, if I may, a couple of quick questions.
Mhm.
You own the property, so you authorized the highway superintendent to do some improvements.
I did.
Did he do what you told him to do?
No, not exactly. The problem is the trench. We were standing in the rain out there. I saw the town. I know Jamie's been having a problem with that house. To begin with, there never should have been a house built in a natural water flow, you know, because that used to be a hay field. I used to hay it every year.
Right.
And most of the time I had to wait till August till it dried up enough. So the house was built there, which my nephew built it, but they didn't ask my opinion.
Should've.
Should have asked your.
You know, there's a lot of things went on, but anyway, that's beside the point. Danny showed up the culvert originally that was there, my father gave the town permission to put the culvert across the road right there because her house is directly across the street from his.
Right.
Do
And-
you remember about when that was?
About 40 years ago.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly.
Oh, that's close.
I'm
Good
not,
enough.
you know, that's close. Lost my train of thought here. Anyways, without that culvert there, my mother's basement gets a lot of water anyway, but it gets ridiculously flooded because it's kind of flat ground. There's no, so the culvert from her side of the road needs to be kept open, but it wasn't, it was plugged. And she asked me what to do about it, and I said, well, call Danny at the highway department, and he immediately got on it, and they came out and they cleaned the culvert out. But of course, on the other side of the road, now where the culvert comes out, there's a big hole there. In the meantime, the house was built there, so there was berms. And, you know, being a farm, before there was people there, actually I drove my tractor in it one time. I had to go get the neighbor to pull me out. Because,
Into the
you know,
culvert.
it's that big of a hole.
Yeah.
But the problem with what's going on now, and don't get me wrong, Danny, the culvert that was put in there is 6 inches to a foot too high. Because the last severe rainstorm we had, I went over there and watched, and the water coming down the road goes into the field just before the culvert. And that whole issue on his side of the road where his house is, most of it is coming from the other way. And I don't care about it going, but my issue is, when I talked to Danny standing in the rain, I told him to go across the field with pipe if they need to, but, you know, the next thing I heard, it's not in the budget. And I'm just concerned about the trench that's there. You know, they put 50 feet of pipe in, and the trench that's 2 feet deep is now 3 feet deep because the excessive water that goes in there, it keeps eroding it down. And all my wishes are, and I don't care if the culvert works or not, but the water that comes in from the other side needs to have something, you know, in there. Either put, it's about 100 feet of pipe, or, you know, tape the bankings down and put stone in the bottom of it or something so it won't erode away. And the ditches, it's definitely getting, we had a lot of water this year. I mean, especially this spring. I mean, there's...
Well, we had that 100-year storm. That really...
Did you remember the last one?
No.
No, it wasn't.
I remember half of it.
half of it.
So, Mr. Chair, I guess there's a little difference of opinion on Mr. Chickering. You know, they think the pipe should have went longer. I guess that's the point I'm getting at, like, not just a trench. You thought the pipe was gonna be...
Well, and I don't, well, I understood originally, I don't know, I don't want to be calling anybody liars because Jamie and myself and Danny were standing there in the pouring rain talking about it, and I told Danny if the highway's got to go across the field, there's an ever-famous apple tree over there, and
Yeah, I
it
saw
kind of
that.
marks my...
Next to the double tree, there's like a
Yeah,
double tree.
everybody wants that tree, but they ain't getting it, it's mine. And I said, if you gotta go, you know, down to the gully, I mean, because there's a gully down there, the water goes to the swamp.
Right,
Wave in the back.
Yeah,
all the way to the wood line.
all the way to the wood line, there's a swamp down there,
Yeah.
and
Well, it's
that's what
tilted.
I mean by the natural flow.
Yeah, it's tilted.
Of course, when the house was built there, I mean, there was a berm put so that it kind of went down that way anyway, but the whole thing started with the big hole next to the road where the culvert comes up from the other side.
Okay.
What?
So wait, I got another question. I was out there today, I didn't go previous to this, but there apparently was some work done to the left of the trench, between the trench and the house. Is that your property, and did you do that work?
That's what was done, Danny, the highway department did that.
No.
We just had our land.
Oh, he graded off,
So
yeah,
that's
no,
all your land up to the
that's
trench?
his land. Wow,
A little bit before the trench.
might have overstepped his bounds a little bit.
Because it's all, yeah, because it's all, I'm not a 100-year landowner over there, but it looked like to me the soil had been disturbed. And again, it's almost tipped a little, like it looks like the water's gonna go that way anyway.
That's the way that it...
From that side.
Yeah, that's the way it originally...
That's the way it was. Originally, the water went down.
Okay, and then there was one more, Mr. Chair, there was some question today about that trench, and Danny indicated to Mr. Reardon, Mr. Guyan, when they dug it, they put the dirt on the left side of the trench almost to help a little bit higher, and
Build the berm there,
all
yeah.
that soil's gone. Does anybody know where that went? Because there was no, that I could see, any soil left on the left side of that trench that would be higher than the actual trench being dug.
Well, it makes that berm higher.
It wasn't doing anything. The water doesn't come above the trench.
Let me ask the question
So then-
differently, all right? What happened to the berm
It's still there.
from the trench that they dug? What happened to that berm? Where'd it go?
Well, on his side, it's all weeds. On my side, we leveled it out.
Okay, so you moved what was there on the berm?
No, there was no dirt left at that trench.
All that we did was just got rid of all the bumps. That's all we did.
The berm that's there was there. There's a trench dug
Right?
straight, approximately 2 feet deep, and like I said, it's near 3 feet deep now.
So if the water doesn't overflow the trench, but Mr. Chickering thinks culvert's a little high, so some or most.
No, sir, let me correct you. I don't think I
Mr.
saw
Chickering
it.
knows, he saw it.
It's too high.
His opinion, it's too high. But the water doesn't overflow the trench. So.
My biggest concern is that's an open trench over there, and
Okay.
technically, it needs to be corrected somehow.
that-
I don't care if
that-
it's
that
done
will
with
be fixed.
stone
Yeah,
or
no,
pipe or whatever down to the apple tree.
Yeah, that'll be fixed.
That's all I want done.
Well, filled in, so there's no trench.
Well, the water's gotta go somewhere.
I mean.
I'm in favor
Danny?
of putting it back like it was. I mean, minus the hole. I mean, we put that basin in there, but that basin is up on the high side of the road, so in order to lower that basin, you're gonna have a pretty good dip there. The basin
Yeah.
is just there for, instead of putting a manhole cover on it,
To fill the hole.
to fill the hole.
You filled
correct.
the hole
And we
is what you
also,
did.
when the pipe came across the street, it pointed towards Mr. Reardon's house, so we put a catch basin in there so you can have the pipe turned away from his house coming out. We put the 60 feet of pipe in there simply because the pipe coming across the street is low, and to get that pipe not as deep as that, we had to go out a little further in the field where the lay of the lane comes up a little bit, because
Yeah.
it's pointing down. I got no problem with taking that pipe out, filling that trench back in, lumen it and seeding it, so you're satisfied
Well,
with
you
it.
can't,
And, excuse me?
you can't just take some more dirt and taper where that trench is
Well,
and put
I
some
would've-
stone in
I would've pushed
there?
the dirt that we left on the top of the bank, and I would've pushed that dirt back in there and top dressed it with some loam. But in the back of that basin we put in out, what I would do is I would dig a hole probably 6 feet deep, maybe 8 feet across or so, and fill it with 3/4 stone, put a fabric over the top and loam it and seed it.
Wait, is this on private property?
It's just off the side of the road. It should be within town property.
Okay.
It's in the area that you're already, Mr.
Yeah,
Chickering
it's
already.
the backside of that.
What I don't understand is you've done such a good job to the point where the 60 feet of pipe stops, why couldn't you just taper that banking and put some stone in there?
Because the problem with putting stone in there, to my opinion, is over the years, when the sand washes through the pipe, it's gonna plug up that stone, and you're gonna have to go over there every couple of years, or whatever the winter's like, how much sand is there, and dig that stone out and re-screen it and put it back in there.
So why, if I can,
Well, then, Jamie.
and this is the crux of the issue for me. What caused the erosion in the first place? If Danny had not done anything, which arguably he
The
may not,
erosion,
should have
that-
done on private property.
That was a field. It is a field. When the water came out of that culvert pipe, the big issue here that was started, this whole thing, is the hole that was dug so that the water could run across the field. But it ran across the field, spread out.
Yeah.
So it did not erode a trench. So the trench,
And that culvert, Mr. Chickering, was in there for about 40 years, approximately?
at least that long, but like I said, it plugged up at some point, so we had to call the town to come clean it,
And that makes sense.
which they did. which solved the water problem in her cellar, but puts it across the road. And, you know, a big hole on the side of the road like that, I don't know. You know,
Yep.
I'm also
Okay.
thinking about public safety here, too.
Okay. Jamie, you want,
I'm just kind of confused, because if, for what Mr. Chickering's saying is if you taper the hole and you dig a hole at the end of where it is and you put crushed stone in there and everything, what's different than what Mr. Guyon's saying by taking all of that pipe and manpower that you just spent $1,800 on and digging another big hole and putting more stone in there? What's saying that that's not gonna get blocked up as well?
It may get blocked up, but at least if it gets blocked up, it'll be on town property, and we can clean it without going on someone else's property. Or having the field be wet and going in there and getting stuck. It'd be right off the edge of the road.
fair.
You know,
Now, the big hole now is with all that field grass. I drove down there earlier. There's a bunch of field grass growing out of it.
right.
Oh, yeah, it's grown in.
Okay.
So I guess the issue, and I think Mr. Chickering kind
Didn't know it
of
was there, you'll go in.
Mr. Chickering kind of hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a safety issue.
well, no, in the very beginning, that road, how long's that road been there? 100 years?
Well, it was before my time, but it was dirt.
So it's at least 70 years.
So
Not that much. Close.
we're trying to fix a problem that Mother Nature created. Well, I take that back, that the builder created, because as Mr. Chickering said, it's in a low spot and it was wet in August. So, he said we did a great job. I'm not a drainage guy. I'll take him at his word. It's his property. He probably walks it every day. But now, Mr. Reardon said it doesn't overflow the trench. So are we talking about water, for layman's term, that's coming off the road left of the trench, heading to the low spot where the house is built?
No,
So where's the water coming from?
it comes from up the hill.
Before, coming up on...
My biggest concern is an open trench over there.
Yeah, I agree,
That's my own biggest concern, because I could care less if it's there or not. It doesn't bother me. It's my back door yard, but I now have new neighbors that have kids and motorcycles that illegally, not their kids, but many kids in the neighborhood, four-wheelers, motorcycles. I'm insurance-wise responsible for them people because it's not posted property.
Right.
And I try to keep it that way so that these hunters that want to go hunting
Yeah.
still have the right to do so.
Oh, no, you're well known for that.
Thank you for that.
No, you're well known for that. There's no
Not
doubt
a
about
bad
that.
guy after all.
Well, I try not to be.
I'd just like to say
I
also...
can
that-
be, though, if I need to be.
I'd just like to say also, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I've known Mr. Chickering probably 30 years, and I guess this whole thing started with a miscommunication, or, like you say, it was raining. When Mr. Chickering offered to have us dig a trench across the field, I didn't hear anything about the pipe, because if I did, I never would have dug the trench in the first place. So it was kind of miscommunication there, or misunderstanding. But I certainly wouldn't have dug that trench if we were asked to put stone or pipe in it, because we just simply couldn't afford it at the time.
Thanks, Danny. Paul.
Was there grass on the surface where the trench now is?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion, and I'm gonna do it so we can pick it apart.
Can he
Oh, I'm
say
sorry,
one more thought
Danny.
first?
It wouldn't be bad at this point is if you continued with the pipe up until the apple tree, and after that apple tree, there's a stone there, and then what happens is it dips down, and it will go off into the bottom of the field and everything. If you do it that way, it's not gonna get plugged up, it's not gonna get, sand isn't going to accumulate there, as if you just extend the pipe out to the tree and then cover it over. What happens is it'll be just like going off into the bottom of the field.
Gravity, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm getting
Oh.
I'm getting confused. Mr. Chickering just said the trench is not the question of the water issue. It's coming from the road, from up above. And I understand Mr. Reardon's point, and Mr. Chickering close up the trench, but what, if it's not, if we got to this point because of water issue, but I think we just determined, based on Mr. Chickering, that the trench isn't causing the water issue. Why would we continue to improve the trench?
Well,
Let me make my motion, okay? That's not part of it.
Well, then I still need an answer.
Well,
First of all-
well, let him make his motion, then we can discuss.
Danny, and I look you in the face when I say this, Danny shouldn't have been a nice guy and made changes on private property that the town did not cause. So, my motion would contain the following elements. One, that Danny be instructed to restore that trench through the field to what it was before they bent a blade of grass. Now, whether that means seeding, because normally you need 2 growing seasons to have that seed hold the dirt below it, or cutting up sod and stripping sod to put that trench so it doesn't wash away at this point in time. That's number one. Number two, the road, the culvert's been there for approximately 40 years. The road has been there for approximately 70 to 100 years, maybe. We don't know. All right? The town did nothing to cause that erosion. The town is responsible for unclogging the drain on the uphill side. That was done reasonably. There is nothing else we should do. There's nothing else we're obligated to do. So my motion would be to restore it, to remove the pipe, make sure that the trench is level, and preferably sod it with the narrow strip so that that then becomes grass that holds, and it's back to what it was originally. We did nothing to cause what has happened.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, second by Mr. Root. Discussion.
Can I make a comment before you finish?
Yeah, we're
The
discussing.
town dug the trench that's 100 feet long, that's 2 feet deep.
That's gonna be fixed. That's gonna be
That-
put back to the way it was.
That's what I want fixed.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Stephen?
okay, my question, Mr. Chair. Are we gonna take the superintendent's suggestion to create, in layman's terms, a dry well at the end of the,
I would vote against that. I would vote against spending any more town money on private property,
This will be on town property,
okay?
dry well.
I would not do it because for 40 or longer years, this was not a problem. Why are you trying to fix something that's not a problem we created? If in time it shows that something should be done, then we can consider it. But we need to put that back the way it was.
okay, so let me ask the highway superintendent then. He installed a catch basin on that side, right,
He did.
with the structure and everything.
Yep.
So if we take the pipe out and we refill that trench in, sand it, loom it, whatever, I mean, sod it, what will be on the back of that structure that we installed for the water that is gonna come through the culvert? I mean, I agree with Mr. Chickering, he's correct. If it's a little bit too high, we're not catching it all, we're still catching water from the other side. What would be we just talked about Paul Lane. Will there be a 18-inch, 20-inch pipe that's just gonna spit water out?
The reason that hole was there in the first place.
To hold it.
And the reason the hole was there in the first place, and it got bigger over the years, obviously, is because when the sand washed through the pipe from the other side, the hole was dug so the sand would filter down to the bottom of that hole, and just basically pure water would run across the field, not fill up the field with salt, with silt. So on the backside of that basin we have there now, I don't really want to rip that basin out. The basin needs to be there anyway. It's going to catch most of the sand probably. But we need something on the backside of that basin, like I say, a dry well where the water can seep through the blocks and the water will drain.
So something's gonna catch
It's still gonna be on town property. I'm gonna have to have the hole there dug anyway when they take the pipe out.
Otherwise, it's gonna fill and overflow.
If you're
Going
gonna,
at-
what I'm questioning here, and, you know, I'm not trying to irritate anybody, because like I said, it's been there for so many years, it never bothered me, but now there's people live there. If you're gonna spend that much money to take the pipe out, and take the basin out of there, and do
I'm not
whatever
taking
you're
the
gonna,
basin out.
well, and take the pipe out and grade that off anyway, why don't you just, you already got 60 feet of pipe in there, why don't you just grade off at the end of that pipe down to where it's going and put some stone in there or something so it won't erode it away?
Because you probably have to need an easement if you put pipe in there, and it's always gonna be on private property.
That's the issue.
That's the issue. They just soon put it back the way
I
it
don't,
was.
I don't care if there's a pipe in there, I'm talking about just grading that trench. It's a direct trench. Taper the bankings down and put some stone in the bottom of it of some sort. Ain't gonna be any more money than it costs to redo what you're talking about.
I just
You're
soon put it
talking,
back like it
you're
was.
talking 100 feet, or 75 feet.
So, Mr. Guy, as town administrator, then what, Mr. Chickering's scenario, what is our obligation if 5, 10 years from now, like Mr. Guyan said, there's an issue further down the trench, further on Mr. Chickering's property, he clearly stated he don't care if there's a pipe there, but where do we, as a town, I mean, most of us won't be here in 10 or 20 years probably at this position, but
God,
Mr.
I
Rand
hope
may be
not.
living there still. Yeah, what do you say, God help us?
God, he hopes not.
Yeah, me too. But, it becomes a question of access and, and does Danny take the machine in on the right side of the trench, on the private property, or the left side of the trench? Do we get an easement that's 8 feet wide? I'm not trying to irritate anyone, to use his phrase, I like that. But it's the issue of town, I forget how the town council already bracketed, Mr. Brackett kind of worded it, town funds and town equipment for non-town purposes.
I don't think a piece of pipe down there would be the answer anyway. I think just tapering it and put something on the bottom so that it doesn't wash away, and something down the end of it so that it stops massive water flow.
But if we get another 100-year storm and it does,
And,
and it does erode.
it's my property,
Yeah,
and it was left in a bad way. Not to insult anybody, it just was left in a bad way. And as far as that culvert not catching the water, I don't really care about that, because it goes in the field a little further up.
right.
That's all. It's a hay field. And it's a field that I maintain every year, at least twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And if that culvert has grown into weeds or whatever, I'll maintain it. If it fills up with plug like I do in any other field that I have erosion, I'll maintain it. It is my property, but I just, the ditch was dug by the town, and a bad leaf. It's got a bad leaf, and I would like,
Mr. Ruda?
I agree that we should bring the property back to, if not its original state, a state that Mr. Chickering can live with. But I think after that, we need to be out of it, in terms of any future ramifications that might come from it. Once we fix it, to your specifications, how you want it replaced to the way it was, or maybe we put some sort of improvement that you may suggest just to finish the project up. I think at some point we need to fish or cut bait, and it's time to cut bait with the whole going on private property. So I'm not opposed to taking your suggestion, but I don't think that we should, once we've made that suggestion, like you said, it's your property after that. Once we've brought it up to the way you think it should be, in terms of grading or not putting any more materials, just manpower and equipment, I think it's time for us to walk away from it. So,
all right, all I did originally was, try to help a new neighbor.
oh, and we appreciate
And
that.
I
No,
just,
this is
I
great.
don't want to make enemies
Yeah.
with my neighbors, because,
Right. And we appreciate that.
it's been,
But it turns into a thing after a while.
yeah, it did.
10 or 15 years,
Yeah.
well, I can speak for myself, 20 or 30 years, I will absolutely not be in this chair.
No.
Maybe 20 or 30 months
Oh,
at
you
this
look
point.
better than that.
But,
So let me.
but once we
yeah.
walk away from it, that has to be the end of it, because it's gonna be a constant, the next board and the next board and the next board, somebody's gonna come in, and there's something's plugged up, there's some sort of problem, it's town property, and we just keep kicking, it's not town property, it's private property, we keep kicking the can down the road.
And to be fair, Mr. Chair,
Steve?
I'm not speaking for anybody again, but I heard it again today. Yeah, Mr. Chickering's dad gave permission. Mr. Reardon wants to see a written document saying that. I mean, this board's been good about memorializing things, but we don't have a written document from 40-plus years ago. We have the good word of the Chickering
Well, the
family.
original culvert is on town property.
Right, but
I mean, listen, at this point, we just want it filled over so that nobody gets hurt.
Right, and I think we're all
That's-
unanimously in
I-
agreement with that.
Amen,
no question
Jamie,
about
you're,
it.
no, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
No open
It's
trenches.
just a hazardous
No trench, or
situation.
even that
Like I
hole.
said, the biggest problem comes from the other direction of the road.
Right.
well, then I
You
think we,
know, it's all open fields and open road, and they kinda all come right there.
I think,
My sister's driveway eroded out this year.
Which
Auto.
one's hers, Charlie?
Langlois, Rondi Langlois. Just
Okay.
before his.
Just, I'm trying to picture it.
And she got a
Oh,
lower
okay.
driveway, and the water went down there, and first time since they've
Yeah,
been
this
there,
side, got
that just eroded a foot and a half deep
Oh.
down the driveway. It's a dirt driveway, but
well, Mr. Chair, I know we have a motion in a second.
We do.
I might want Michelle to read it back, but I'm leaning towards, I think, Jonathan's suggestion, which I think is what Danny wants to do. Town property, put something on the outflow.
I'm not prepared to do that right now. I personally would not vote for that. I think that Jonathan seconded the motion, which is the simplest motion and the most straightforward and the most logical at this time, which is that we instruct Danny to restore the property to what it was prior to his doing any work.
So the question becomes then, that means
Where's
take,
the water gonna go?
that means take the pipe out, where's the water gonna go out of the back of that structure? It's not,
Do we have any idea how much more water that's gonna create?
Well, that if your motion goes, we'll have to take that structure out as well and put the hole back.
I'll plug that.
Well, you can't
plug it, the
plug
water.
the pipe, I mean,
Oh,
Can't?
COVID.
Okay.
because
well, in that
Not
sense,
the culvert.
in that sense, that makes a
Hole
big
with
hole there, and I would like some guardrails or something put up there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my motion.
I'm gonna,
And Jonathan seconded it.
So I have two more issues that I just want to reinforce here. First of all, we need someone who's gonna, when we make a motion to return it to the way it was, based on whose opinion? I would think that that would be Mr. Chickering's opinion, to his satisfaction, right?
You know what? Let's do this. Let's, with your permission, amend the motion to restore the property to what it was, all right? To the satisfaction of Mr. Chickering. That would take care of that.
Okay.
Okay, and?
And the second one is that I don't even think we need to make a motion. I think the highway superintendent needs to remediate any issues on town property in that area that he deems necessary.
And that'll,
On town property.
and that'll cover the, where's the water go?
so that'll give Danny,
like that.
that'll give Danny the ability to construct the so-called dry well?
If that's what it needs. Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what you got there, with the culvert?
Because I don't think, I mean, whatever, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna vote against it only because I think if we take that pipe out and we restore it, we're gonna create a problem with the outflow from that structure. If Danny takes it out this week, because we tell him to, and it rains like it did last month, you're gonna have a ton of water coming through there going into, what? Soil?
that's what his second piece to that
That's what I said, I said, if it gives Danny the permission to construct it, but Paul was saying he didn't want that.
I want that. We have to, I
didn't want it
don't
at
care
this
what it
time.
is, we have to do something
We have
to
to remediate
mitigate where that water's gonna
Well,
go. That's
Let me clarify.
hydraulics,
I would
right?
not vote to do something specific at this time, that's what I said. I think, one, we should approve the first motion, which is to the satisfaction of Mr. Chickering, that's number one. Number two, that there ought to be a motion.
Are you remembering what my wishes were?
I beg your pardon?
Are you remembering what my wishes were in your motion that you're making?
No.
I asked for 100 feet of ditch to be corrected.
Right.
That's as simple as that. I didn't ask for anybody to take out what's there. I didn't ask for any correction up further. I asked for the ditch to be corrected with possibly some stone in the bottom of it, so it will stop the flow and erosion.
Here's the problem, in my mind, and I speak only for myself. We should not have accepted your permission to do work on private property that the town did not cause to occur. All right? We shouldn't have done that, but we did. So we need to clear that up by, number one, restoring what that field was before we did any work, to your satisfaction. If you make a second motion, without specificity, Sully, if you make a second motion to instruct the highway superintendent and the town administrator to monitor and mediate any further problems that may occur in that area, that I'll vote for. But I don't want to vote for a specific solution, because we don't know what that solution, what's going to cause that solution.
But you leave it up to the people who know what they're doing.
Right.
You're
We
not
do.
a civil
We
engineer,
have,
I'm not a civil engineer.
We do, we have a suggestion from our superintendent.
Right, so I'd be just as soon go with what Danny wants to do.
And now the issue becomes, if we're trying to restore it to, Mr. Chickering has indicated it's more public safety than anything on that trench, right?
Yep.
That's all we're dealing with is a trench.
Right, so if,
That's all that needs to be corrected.
so it
Some of
obviously,
this sounds to me like it's an attitude. You know, I don't know. I didn't get involved in this, only telling Danny if he needed to use some of that
Yeah.
field to put in what he had to put in, that
But
would
still-
be fine with me.
right,
There's,
that's,
there's still the problem of the water. I mean, that's why Jamie first came
Right,
in.
and if you take out what's there and leave a hole there, that's gonna just continue, the dirt has been disturbed. It needs to be, stop the flow. You got a 12-inch pipe in there, correct?
Yep.
And the water that came down this spring, the 12-inch pipe wasn't big enough. So a lot of the water just went over the road.
That's amazing.
And if you disturb what's already working, it just seems foolish to me.
That's why all that we're saying is
All we're saying is
keep the
that
trench so that nobody
just
can
taper the walls on the trench so nobody can fall in it.
put some stone and be done.
well,
And then the
do
town
with
walks
another
away
motion.
from this.
And the town can be left out of it. I'm sorry I got myself involved
no,
in it.
no,
No,
no.
no, not at all.
You know,
No? I mean, it just
No,
seems
no.
the simplest answer.
No, you're fine.
and then,
Not great, but fine.
the issue becomes, we walk away.
I'll be great
and
before I'm done.
20, 30, 40 years from now, you know, who's, I don't know, whatever. I'm gonna take we always take the recommendation 99% of the time of our professionals.
I think that's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
Because the motion says,
We'll make another motion after if you want to add it.
Let's get a move on here.
Right.
okay,
Well, what's Paul's motion?
That we restore the field to what it was before Danny did any work.
to someone's satisfaction, wasn't
Yeah,
that?
right, to Mr. Chickering's satisfaction.
Which is filling in his trench. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? Okay.
You opposed?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay,
I'll make your motion.
now make your
I'm not
motion.
making a motion. All right,
Would it be easier for your professional,
Yeah.
Danny, is that the professional you're talking about?
Yeah.
When he does this stuff? If he came out and looked at it and discussed it with me?
You know, I mean, it's so flipping logical. Restore it to what it was, period.
No, it's logical for you.
And then if you need to do something further,
The problem
authorize Danny to do the work.
Yeah, but then it's gonna take much longer.
You've already spent $1,800 on all the work that had to be done. So now you're telling us you're gonna spend more money to take that pipe out, put more dirt in, and then what's gonna end up happening is you're gonna end up with another Fiat hole at the end of the day. Because all the dirt has been disturbed, so all the water that comes through the pipe on the other side of the road is just going to keep on coming through, it's going to bubble up, and it's gonna go away.
You know what? I'm not good enough to predict. I'm glad you are. I'm not. And let's do first things first. Put that back the way it was. If your satisfaction includes leaving the pipe in, filling it, leveling it, and grassing it, fine,
On town property.
all right? But if that's what your satisfaction is, and not put any further work in, all right? But now you're gonna have the issue, something's gonna happen to the water at the end of that pipe.
no, the pipe has to come
Goes in the
out.
swamp.
The pipe has to come out to restore it. Pipe's gonna come out.
Well, I mean, that's what I said originally, and then
You guys just voted for
there's
it.
reluctance.
You guys just voted for it 3-1.
Satisfaction, though.
But if you.
The wording
I mean,
covers
honestly,
it.
the easiest solution to this is, at the end of the pipe, all that they need to do.
Just
equal
grade the
size,
trench.
stone,
all we're asking.
done. That's it. Taper, stone, done.
If I need to put stone in there, I'll put it in there myself. I'll buy the stone. Just taper the banking. It's a direct down trench, and I'm not too sure, safety, Department of Safety, that's against the rules to leave that
You
open
have
like
open
that.
trenches. That's against the rules and it's common sense. I agree with you 100%.
Well, I mean, you know, all I'm trying to do is protect myself as well as what was already done. We spent some town money that really doesn't work, but it probably will if we get 2 feet of water. It runs down there, but why disturb what's already working? Just grade the bankings
Private property, though.
where the trench is. Grade them down, so they taper down like this. If I gotta get stone to put in there, I'll put stone in there. I
Right.
told him to do it.
Greg, is it against the law for the town to do work on private property to solve a problem it did not cause?
Non-lawyerly response. Work on private property needs to serve a public purpose. It has to serve a public purpose.
Public safety, that purpose?
Public purpose would be to alleviate flooding on a roadway, et cetera. So, public money shouldn't be used to remedy problems on private property.
This whole problem started, you gotta remember, Mr. Reardon complained the water from the field was going onto his property in his backyard. He's gonna have a pool put in. I wasn't gonna do anything. We didn't cause the problem. Talking to Mr. Chickering, and that's where we misunderstood each other, he said, dig a trench across the field. That's what we did, and I figured that trench would alleviate the water problem going into Mr. Reardon's yard. And that's what we did, so I'm in favor of putting it back like it was.
Well, we voted that 3-1 at this point. What do you want to do for a second motion?
I'd like to hear Michelle read back that motion one more time.
Okay. Paul Joseph
The second motion?
The one we just voted on.
Okay.
that Dan Guyon be instructed to restore the trench, remove the pipe to what it was before they bent a blade of grass, seed it, and cut up the sod to put it back to what it was. Number 2, the road culvert, which is 40 years old, and the road is 70 to 100 years old. The town did nothing to cause the erosion. We are responsible for unclogging the drain only. J.R. seconded.
Oh, that was in the motion?
Yes, sir.
Sweet Jesus.
That's where the problem lies. You stated the town did nothing to cause the erosion. The town dug the ditch. My permission, my fault. I never should have said that. I should have let you walk away from that like you wanted to, because the culvert was working fine with me. But now we got a problem. It's a safety issue that the town did, erosion, and I'm trying to work with the town to fix it. Now, if it's all right with the Board of Selectmen and Danny, you're professionals, come out, look at the site with the two of us standing together and make an agreement of what to do with the problem. The problem is not the water. The problem is the ditch.
So, if I may, our motion, I don't think it was intended to be that long. I thought the motion finally was to instruct Danny to restore the field to what it was prior to the town doing any work to the satisfaction of Mr. Chickering. That's what I thought the motion was at the end.
Restore the property.
And the satisfaction is to leave the culvert you got there and the pipe you got there the way it is. There's the 100 feet that's left down there to grade that off and
All
put
right.
something in there for water flow.
So that's what we voted. We haven't done anything else at this point, but we need to do something or get off the pot, yeah. If you think there's more that needs to be done.
So Danny goes out there and restores it to the satisfaction of Mr. Chickering, which includes the suggestions made by Mr. Chickering. Done, out. Once we restore it to the way we're suggesting here, done and out in terms of our liability of maintaining it after that, right? The trench is closed, the
Thank
stone,
you,
whatever.
that's what we want. You
Right.
state, you put it all in, and then walk away from it.
And nothing that we've done here has prevented Danny, as the highway superintendent, to take the necessary actions.
Thanks, Tony.
on town property, on the road.
In the future, yeah.
You're gonna have to drive over 60 feet of private property to maintain the end of that pipe
Right.
once it gets plugged up.
Paul's
Well,
mo-
that's why we're out.
Paul's motion said take
Yeah,
the
but
pipe out.
if we don't maintain it and nobody else maintains it, it's gonna back up the drainage system. You're gonna have flooding on the roadway worse than what you have now.
And Paul's motion was, part of it was remove the pipe. Mr. Chickering just
No,
said,
I mentioned that
I'm
after
not,
the fact. That
you're
was not part of
talking
the
about
motion.
putting pipe in the 100 feet we're talking about, I'm just talking about
leaving.
Yeah, that was not the original
Leaving the-
motion.
tapering the bankings down so that it's not a direct ditch,
Well, I can just say.
so it can be seen more easily.
Basically, he wants.
I'm gonna suggest that if there's any tapering or stone to be done, it's gotta be done on private property by the property owners. It's private property.
Why don't we do this?
I'm glad I
We- we
voted against
vote- we voted on something now.
Very
Before we take
simple.
any further action, why don't we just have another meeting? Danny, Mr. Chickering, come back and with Greg, if he, Greg's joining the meeting, come up with one final plan that's going to give us a concise thing to vote on, right? Everybody, I think, knows where we stand. We want to get out of the maintenance of the property. We want to get the trench filled in so it doesn't cause a safety hazard. And we want to fix the road because of the actions that we may take to fill in the
In the
trench.
future.
What was done there, really, it didn't solve the problem, but it's not in the way.
Yeah.
Just made the water go into the field a little further up. It has a down banking off of the road. And I'm okay with that. I don't care if it runs across the field, because eventually things dry up. But it's the whole field that it goes across. It's not gonna make an erosion. The problem is where the culvert is, and incidentally, that was a fine job you did. It looked nice. And the pipe that comes out of it, it's not harming anything. If we get massive flow, all that is water that doesn't go down the other side of the road.
You know,
I guess my point, Paul, is that we have the motion, it just passed.
we did it.
Okay, we did it. But I think that we're leaving it too, I think we need to take one more bite at the apple here. I would like, before Danny can take action tomorrow if he wants, but I would strongly suggest that Greg and Danny and Mr. Chickering meet one more time and come back with another recommendation. If it's the same recommendation, it's the same one. If we can do this a little bit more concisely and have a better motion to vote on, we should do that.
Okay.
Hold on. So Steve, what are your reservations?
Motion said take the pipe out restore the land, I'm paraphrasing, restore.
No,
Yes, it did, she read it back.
that was a comment, but I didn't say take the pipe out in my original motion.
That's what you guys
I
voted on.
did not say take the pipe out.
She
I
just
said restore it
That
to
was
the
her notes.
condition.
Fine, to Mr. Chickering's satisfaction.
Right.
He just said he's okay with the pipe, just fix the trench, he don't care if it fills in, taper with stone, and Danny's saying, we're gonna have 60 feet of pipe that the town is, eventually gonna be responsible for. And it's catching rain from the other side where his mother's house is, helping with that flow. So something's gonna happen at some point, maybe not the first year, the second year. And I think Danny's intention, or Danny's thoughts, were to fill the pipe, fill the trench, and catch it at the structure. But that may not be what Mr. Chickering wants, and your motion is,
Can I ask Danny a
Make
question?
another one to,
When you clean that
I voted in negative, I can't.
culvert
You make a new
originally,
motion?
when you clean that out, I mean, can you, with that culvert that's there, you can clean that
they're
the
additive.
same, can't you?
I don't know where you're talking.
You got drain
Drain?
on top.
Yep.
Let him make his driveway.
You can take that top out and
Oh, yeah.
clean that out.
I
can't you?
agree with you. I agree with you.
You know,
He has to approve.
I don't know why we're belaboring this.
You got a motion in the past, so
We passed it. Now, Mr. Reardon's concern, and we need to be aware of this, is that none of us know what impact the new catch basin and outflow will have on that property. All right? He's not a fortune teller, and neither are we. And that's why we need to either have a motion or an understanding I prefer motions, that Danny and Greg will monitor and ameliorate, if need be, by whatever they think is appropriate, to offset what the town did do, which was the catch basin with the outflow.
My concern with doing that, again, is going to be when you take out that pipe and you return it to the original way that it was, even if you leave the catch basin there, okay? Is that when that water comes through underneath the road, where's it go?
Yeah, I mean, and I understand that, and I'm sure we all do. We don't know what the impact's gonna be, depends on the amount of rain and so on.
Right, and I understand that,
But if we cause the problem, then I think we're obligated to fix it, whether it's on private property or not, if we caused it.
Then we need to get easements to be able to do
Yeah,
it.
then we need easements. That's what I think. If we cause it from what Danny put in, then it's now our responsibility to fix that, to ameliorate that. I mean, that's pretty simple. That's the law of the land.
So at this point, where are we at, just with everything?
We're just gonna restore the field to the way it was with Mr. Chickering's satisfaction.
And we're gonna have a meeting. Danny, myself,
Yeah, Greg will be
And-
there.
Come back with what the final, what we're gonna do. And that'll satisfy
okay,
what Steve wants, okay?
okay. As long as we're all there,
Yeah, just,
As long as the end result is,
because it is
Francis
private
Field
property,
is
but
safe
it is
for-
mine.
yeah, yeah, right. You guys, we gotta be careful for a lot of reasons, right? It looks like we're beating dead horses, and we are.
Well,
but
yeah, you do, because of the way the world is today, everybody's so happy.
It's sad, isn't it? But
I'm a
it's also.
farmer, I've been a farmer all my life.
No.
And problems happen. And all I want to do is work them out. I'm not gonna sue anybody. I don't care where the water goes, that it's gonna go in the swamp no matter what, maybe take his house with it, right down in the swamp. But I made an offer this spring to try and fix a problem, and it turned into this mess, and all I want to do is undo it.
Yeah.
That's the interesting part, is that everyone, without exception, has been well-intentioned.
Yeah. Yep.
There's no malice involved. Everyone's been well-intentioned.
Yeah,
We just
correct.
gotta make sure we do things we're not stuck with in the future.
Correct.
And we'll work together to fix
Yep.
it to everybody's, the best
Right.
we can.
You get no problem
Hey,
from
Jamie,
me.
you
Now,
good?
my daughter now, when she inherits that farm, you might have a problem. But you're not gonna be here anyway.
all right, we'll take another shot at it.
Thanks, Mr. Chickering.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Mr.
Jamie.
Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chickering. Really, good to see you here.
Mr.
Come
Chairman,
again, Mr. Chickering.
Yeah.
Come again to another.
I enjoyed myself.
Hey, you did all right.
15 years before.
You did all right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna move that both items E and F be tabled to the next meeting for a second reading, but I will tell you this. I've read that communications policy thoroughly, and I have no problem approving that the way it is, just to let you know. But as a matter of course and procedure, we should table them for a second reading.
Mr. Chair, if that's a motion, I'll second it, but can we just put a
Motion, second.
caveat, a stopgap in place? Any press releases go out have to be approved through the town administrator's office?
Absolutely. If that's, you want that to be part of the motion?
Hold on.
I would add it.
Dean,
What's that
Dean
again?
has a comment. Anybody else?
Press release would have to go through your office.
That's what the policy states.
Yep.
Dean?
I'm
Yep.
just gonna make a brief statement about this. I feel something needs to be said. If people get upset or mad, then so be it. I feel, in relation to that ambulance accident last week, that press release was totally handled inappropriately. There was no need to put the names of my people in there on that short a notice. We could have waited until they got to the hospital and there was a cooling down period. We could have waited 24, 48 hours, or put a more benign press release out with no names. I called the administrator and showed I was upset about it because there was no need of it. I just think, I'm just disappointed. That should have been up to me in conjunction with the administrator.
Okay, duly noted.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor
Yep.
and seconded.
Second.
Motion to table or to approve? What did you say?
No, the motion was to table with the caveat that all press releases from tonight on need to be approved by town
Until
administrator.
we get this policy in place.
Yep.
And this goes, and this will be brought up maybe for, can we advertise it on the next
Are you talking?
agenda
E&F?
as a vote,
Okay,
as
yeah.
opposed to
E&F.
a second?
This is also, he's also talking about the
E&F.
F as well.
Yeah.
You guys caught
Right,
that?
right.
All right.
I'm good with that.
Any changes to the draft will just be sent directly to Greg, if
Yep.
if the people.
Those
So
two
we'll
will
vote on
fight.
it next,
Yep.
next meeting.
Yep,
Okay.
Okay?
there. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask Mr. Ruda if he would agree to table the following topic, G, to next meeting.
Are you hungry?
No, I just want to get on with, we got a long,
Oh,
I
I'm not
think,
gonna talk, I don't,
executive session.
I can do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah, this is a quick one, isn't it?
28, and you're on.
This is an easy one.
Mr. Ruda, G.
We've had volunteers who have really, especially John Breyer, who's really worked hard to make our website vastly improved from what
Yeah.
it was.
Sure has.
Nice
There's
job.
been a lot of volunteer work. Deb Thibodeau works hard to maintain it. I think that we need to make sure that we're reciprocal when we have volunteers do it, and we get a lot of content on that website. And we make it a regular thing that when meetings are posted and so forth, they go to Michelle or whomever, and we get it out on the internet to really take advantage of what people have done
Gary Brackett's
at
here.
no cost.
I like that idea.
Yep,
And maybe color code the type of events.
Yeah,
with a little key.
Yep.
Oh,
and that's part of that's actually in the policy we're gonna talk about next week, communications policy.
Excellent.
Okay?
thank you.
Did you do that in the form of a motion?
No, that was for informational purposes only.
Okay, I like it.
Is there any strong objection to that?
Nope.
Okay, good.
That's great. And item H is the Worcester County Selectmen's Association membership. Greg and Michelle, we got this from Mr. Jolda and
Phone
Webster.
call from Andrew Jolder.
Webster.
Jolder?
Jolda.
He's a selectman in Webster, and he'd like to know if we would be interested in it.
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Take a look at it and bring it up.
Okay.
Is that one member per board, or is that everybody can be?
I put the bylaws together.
I think
Yeah.
everybody can
I
do.
would acknowledge receipt, as Paul likes to say.
Yeah, can you guys, you wanna do that?
I'm getting good at this. Just in time to be able
Okay,
to.
who's not here,
It's
Kerry?
a voting member and an alternate vote member, two
Okay.
people.
Those
Two
are two
people.
people. Does Webster, quick question, Michelle?
Pardon?
Does Webster pay for them to belong to that, or?
I would assume.
Yeah, I have to imagine they do, John.
We have something in our budget for that.
Membership.
Yeah, I have
Use
to, I
that.
have to imagine.
Small line
I think we
item.
did. I think we did.
We can take it out of expenses.
$50 a year.
So it's two, okay, can we,
Yeah, acknowledge receipt. and-
wait, acknowledge receipt and we'll, put this on a future.
So when you go to the Mass Municipal Conference in January, you get to wear the little blue ribbon on your.
Says you're a member.
I would wear that anyway.
Yeah.
Student rep,
All right.
we have a lawsuit.
cow, he looks terrible.
Student representative, hold.
He ain't here.
Yeah, no.
Board
All right,
member
student
comments?
represent, any board member comments, Paul?
Just one. As you know, we've asked town officials in Dudley to help the backpack brigade by serving a meal. We went to the Webster Selectmen, made a presentation, and they are all serving. Selectmen and a bunch of other town officials are going to be serving the meal this Wednesday, the free fellowship meal, from 5 to 6 at the Webster Dudley American Legion on the corner of Houghton and School. But here's the cool part. Laurie and I made a list. There are 8 pizza places in Webster. So we figured out how much pizza we need, and we're going to go to all 8 and ask them to donate 7. The first one she went to, while she was out running errands, essentially donated all 56 pizzas. She never had to make more than one stop.
Wow.
So those will be delivered to the American Legion at 4:45, and the Webster Selectmen and other officials will be serving the homeless, the unemployed, the underemployed, the needy, and seniors. That'll be cool.
Awesome. Good. Can you tell you what pizza place donated?
We'll have a sign up for them tomorrow, and we'll acknowledge them publicly in the paper.
Good, okay. It's good to do that.
Excellent.
I will tell you this, he's a good Lebanese guy.
Oh, the bag job, Paul?
I didn't even know he owned
Just
it.
kidding. No, I appreciate hearing that. Bag job. Jonathan, anything?
Just as we go into the fall budget, we're gonna look to continue this board's policy to put public safety number one in terms of our budgeting preference. Just, I like to reiterate that, so that when Greg starts preparing it, he's on the same wavelength.
Right, we got some hard, fast numbers that we intentionally underfunded at the spring meeting that need to be addressed.
We do. We do.
And he knows it.
We do. Steve, anything?
No, Mr. Chair, just, good meeting tonight. That other issue, I'm glad that the property owner came in because we had a lot of he said type things, and I wasn't voting against the motion to keep the problem perpetuating. I just thought we should have some kind of provision in there, a little more detailed too.
And we'll have that.
Because,
It's a nub of a problem, I agree.
and I'm glad Mr. Chickering left, I'm sorry, I'm glad he came in, he said he's not comfortable, he said first time he'd been to one, but he cleared up a lot of,
He's a cool guy.
it started out as a drainage issue, and he started right off with saying it's not a drainage issue, it's not our fault, not the town's fault.
But it's just good to see like one of Dudley's, older families,
Yeah.
come in and,
Yeah,
farming community, I love hearing about that, and he fixes problems and, They,
so that's,
Nice.
land ownership and access, I was really happy to hear him say that too. And I have nothing else, so,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
hold on, departments, Danny, anything else?
Danny?
Dean and Steve, anything? Guys done?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair, but unfortunately, I can't make the second half of the motion to go into
why
executive
don't you-
at the advice
All right.
of the town administrator.
I'm going to move that we convene into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, subsection A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding the Islamic Society of Greater Worcester versus the Zoning Board of Appeals, and not to reconvene in public session this evening.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Ruda, roll call vote.
Paul Joseph, aye?
John Marcy, aye.
Ron Ruda, aye.
Stephen Sullivan abstaining for
Yeah, that's right.
reasons that are well known.
Got it.
Hi, everyone copy of the program is that I'm objecting to the board going into closed meeting regarding litigation.
Mr. Chair, 1 minute at this point, I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion of,
See you, so.
with the press.
Go ahead.
Just let me walk out there.
This will be the tail light rule right here.
What are we doing?
The tail light.
Deb?
So
One
I'm
sec.
assuming by what you just read, you're referring to exemption number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If the open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, you do not have any litigation.
Are you saying that the chapter and verse we cited does not apply to the topic that we cited?
No, I'm saying that what you cite most closely resembles exemption number 3. And exemption number 3, the purpose is to discuss litigation as to not compromise your position by discussing that litigation in open session. However, if you don't have any litigation, the judge dismisses the case.
Greg, can you, Gary, can he comment on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, number one, I'm sure Debbie understands the judge's decision was issued on the 14th of September. And as with any civil litigation, there are avenues for review of a judge's decision. For instance, I'm sure she understands that an appeal from a superior court to the appeals court or the appeals court to the SJC, you have 30 days. During that time, there's been a judgment. Until the appeal is filed, the judgment is not final. So discussion of an appeal of an adverse decision would be grounds for an executive session. In this case, I know, having spoken with Debbie, she's familiar with the fact that the court heard on the 13th of September, heard the motion for sanctions, the opposition thereto, and also there frankly was agreement that the matter was going to be dismissed. The issue was whether it was going to be dismissed without costs and attorney's fees or with costs and attorney's fees. Under Land Court Rule 9, the parties are allowed to file a motion for reconsideration from an adverse ruling, and my research to date indicates there's a possible appeal if the judge denies the reconsideration, affirms the earlier decision. The reasons for reconsideration would be if the judge made an error of fact or an error of law. So before you go up, you give the judge an opportunity, a second chance, to review his or her decision to decide if there is a basis for reconsidering and then evaluating the original decision or changing it. So in my experience over 42 years as a public attorney with the open meeting law since 1975, post-decision considerations, whether to appeal, file motions for reconsideration. Under Rule 59, you can file a motion for a new trial if you had in fact a trial, which we didn't have here. But those are all motions that fall under the umbrella of strategy with respect to pending litigation. Pending, or I think as Debbie knows, imminent litigation. So if we were discussing, if I may just finish, please. If we were discussing tonight, Mr. Chairman, the possibility of you directing me to file a suit on Monday next week, there's no pending litigation, but that would be imminent. That would fall under the category. So I had recommended Mr. Balakonis that this designation is appropriate for tonight's consideration.
Okay?
Are you going to discuss reconsideration for an appeal in the judge's decision to dismiss the case?
Oh, no,
To
no, just the sanctions.
To dismiss it as long as it's like.
I actually agreed to stipulate. I had a signed stipulation that day.
So you will be discussing imminent litigation, not open litigation, will be as long as Society of Greater Worcester, since that case has been dismissed.
No, it's not imminent litigation. It's the period following a decision when one party or another may request reconsideration or take an appeal, or as I cited, possibility of a new trial, which doesn't apply here. But all of those fall into the category of pending litigation because the decision is not final until the period for reconsideration and appeal have passed with no action.
My objection is on record, and I was going to say that there is no pending litigation with the Islamic Society of Greater Worcester. And what you're about to discuss tonight is whether or not you're going to ask the judge to reconsider his position or decision on sanctioning the Islamic Society of Lawyers, which does not involve the Islamic Society of Lawyers at this point. So, objection noted, your decision, and we'll see what happens.
Is there any harm for us, Leah, to do this in open session?
I would recommend against doing it in open session, Mr. Chairman. I think there are issues that have to be discussed in executive session. That's the purpose for the exemption under the open meeting law.
All right, we've made our motion, we voted, objection is noted. Advice of counsel, let's go into executive session.
Thank you, good night.